Well, I think I'm very concerned about it. Naturally, we had a great game against the Jets, probably the best offensive game that we've ever had as a team. And this concerns me a little bit because you look at a team like New York, who is much better than they've been playing, and they've lost 2 games now to St. Louis and Washington in a row. And so you think, well, maybe it's going to be easy this week, but it's going to be very tough. And I'm very concerned about it, mainly, as you say, because of the defeats of Miami and Minnesota and all the big ones here after good victories.
Coach, where are you now compared to last year? Do you feel you're a better football team than last year?
I feel like we're stronger at this point overall, mainly because our passing game is so much stronger at this point. Craig Martin was hurt last year at this time, and now we have healthy quarterbacks, and we're throwing the ball so very well at this point. And our defense seemed to have picked up against the Jets in pass defense, and I think this will be the real key to our playoff run, is the pass defense that we play.
Coach, could you tell us the situation regarding Jethro Pugh?
Yes, Jethro, who had the attack of appendicitis before the Thanksgiving Day game, and we moved him off for 2 weeks. He's healthy again, and he's working with us again, and we think he'll be activated this week. Well, we'll start with Thomas and Hill again. We just don't feel like we can break up this tandem that's been working so effectively. We hope to work Walt Garrison in at fullback some. Now, whether we'll move Thomas into halfback at all will depend a lot on the game and how it's coming.
After winning 6 straight games in a row, a team surely can be overconfident. How will this affect your team?
Well, I don't know how it'll affect us in winning 6 in a row. I think it gives you momentum. I think that we'll stay in there pretty tough. We know we have to get everything working for us for Minnesota on the playoffs if we're fortunate enough to make it up there, and so we just feel like we've got to keep playing.
You said you wanted to win the Eastern Division, but did you ever consider trying for the runner-up spot for a warmer playoff climate?
I don't think so. I think that when you're in this business, you're playing the best teams, and I think any of them can beat you. And I think we've got to take on Minnesota if possible right off. And if we win that one, we're back home. And I think that's pretty significant that you can play the NFC championship game in your own park.
What sort of a problem will St. Louis bring you Saturday afternoon?
I think the difficulty will be in the passing game. I think with guys like Gray, who runs a 9-300, and Gilliam, who's a great deep threat, we're going to have a very explosive group outside. And this is a type that can make a big play on you. And therefore, we've got to keep that down. If we can do that, I think we can win.
To say one thing that we've done the last two games, I think we haven't done before, was we're hitting the line a lot quicker. They've got the backs hitting the line real fast. So if we get any opening at all in there, the backs, like Calvin and Dwayne, are hitting it so fast they're just through for 5 yards. And the linebacker will tackle him, but he drags him another couple yards, and we're getting big gains. I think it's been the line quicker.
You know, I'm going to ask a question I'm going to get in trouble on because I don't know a zone block from any other kind of doodad or what. But have you been going to a zone block more and then running to daylight with the two backs?
I wouldn't say so. It looked like it against New York because they used a 4-3 defense, and a 4-3 defense is, you know, the basic defense, and we do zone a lot on that. We use the change-ups on the odd defenses when the guys are in the gaps.
Okay, let me ask you what a zone block is. Would you explain it
Well,
for us?
that's when you put your head right under the guy's chin, opposite chin, and move him any way you can. And the back seat reads your block and goes the opposite way of the way you take the defensive guy, hopefully.
This is something, though, that you as a club don't do that often, right?
We have, in the past, we've done a lot of passing in various games, and we don't use it. But lately we have been using it because I don't know why we've been using it more. I like it, though.
Why do you like it?
Well, it just, for one thing, it's easier, and you feel like you're more in the game. You like hitting the guy and moving him back. It's not a pain thing. It's a primitive type of emotion it gives you to move somebody back and have the back rip through for 5 yards. You know, it's different than a finesse type block.
Surprisingly, I'm not really having any difficulties. I seem to be in good enough shape to play, and I can hold up, you know, for a whole game. And I've just got the same old aches and pains I've always had in my knee and in my back, but they haven't restricted me yet, so I'm pretty lucky.
I know that after that first game in Washington, you were very, very tired. Do you still get as exhausted after a ball game?
Yes, I get kind of exhausted, but I don't know, it seems like I'm always that way. It depends on what type of game it is. If it's a hard-hitting game, especially like the one we had against New York, where there was a lot of hard hitting going on in the line, you can seem to get run down. It depends on the type of game you're playing.
Got to be pleased too. You played against one of the better defensive ends in the NFL, and Fred Dreyer, and I didn't see him back on Staubach at all day.
Well, I made a point this week to try to do my best against him. Anytime you come up against a good end like Dreyer, who's fast and gets to the passer quite a bit, well, you try to really put on an extra effort, and that's what I did.
Of course, you're a longtime member of this ball club. You were here during the stretch drive last year. Compare the two clubs. Do you feel this one is much better than what you had last year?
Yeah, I think so. I think depth-wise is the best way to explain it. We seem to have better depth than we've ever had. We get somebody hurt, somebody else come off that bench and do just as good a job, and this is what really helps us.
Well, personally, I feel, Vern, that this is a much better football team at this time this year than it was at the same time last year. A lot of things has changed around for us this year, and more of the guys that we have are more healthier now than we were last year, and we are more experienced in what we're doing, and we know exactly what we have in mind to do and what is set out for us to do, and this is what we're doing.
You know, that's I think that's the position of the future, and you know, I think especially since we have in the past, you know, 5 or 6 games gotten the passing game untracked, and you know, it looks like the trend for Coach Landry is to build a strong passing attack, and you know, I'd like to get in there. You look at guys like Sanders and the guy in Cincinnati, Qualic out in San Francisco, and you know, all of these guys have real fast wide receivers, guys like Hayes and Allworth. They have Washington out in San Francisco, and these are the ones who are getting double coverage, and that's why Qualic is doing so well this year, I think. And you know, I think Hayes has 4 or 5 or maybe 6 or 7 good years left, and I'd like to get out there while he's still getting double coverage. It'll make my job a lot easier.
Is this a campaign that you will go to Coach Landry with during the offseason, perhaps, or have you already?
Well, not really. You know, I've joked around with Coach Renfro, but you know, I've found in 3 years, if anything, that you can't campaign for one thing or another. As far as Coach Landry is concerned, he's a man of has pretty strong will, and he has his mind made up. He'll have his mind made up in February, and regardless of what I say or do, he's not going to veer from his path. But you know, it was mentioned last year, and I think last year I was against it because, you know, of the circumstances. Hopefully I can do well at running back the remainder of the games, and then I would like to switch to tight end.
that once the decision was made on the quarterback, things suddenly came together, even to the degree that as an offensive line, the holding penalties that had been so prevalent are suddenly not there anymore.
Well, I think this is probably because more concentration is being put on our job and assignment and what we're doing, and we're not really worried about it. I think in the past, a lot of the guys, including myself, have been worried about a penalty or holding or something like this, or clipping or something like this, and it's just not on our mind anymore. We're just going out to do the best job that we can, and if it's called, then it's called, and if it's not called, it's not called, you know. And as a result, we're performing much better and executing our plays real well, and it's cutting out the penalties and things like this.
Kind of fun to block, isn't it, when you know you've got the dual threat of Thomas and Hill behind you?
I tell you, it's a great thrill to block for those guys, including Garrison also, because all three of them are real good runners, and it's a great feeling to block and to get your man down and to look up and see the ball carry across the end zone.
Well, you know, I have played, of course, the last half of the season, and you know, a lot's happened. It's kind of amazing. You know, I was really, you know, down in the dumps after that Chicago game, and here we are in a, you know, winning streak and an award like this. It's tremendous, but you know, I'm very realistic about it, and I'm, you know, not just trying to be humble, but I'm, as I say, surrounded by a tremendous football team. And you know, we got running backs who are running the football now. We got great receivers and fine offensive line. Our defense is doing a good job, and I just happen to be a quarterback on a very fine team, and I've done some good things, but this is, you know, the type of award really, in this case specifically, that it should be shared by the entire team.
How far does football go back in your life, Roger?
Well, it goes back, I guess, to about the age of 13. I started playing organized football when I was in the 7th grade, and as far as being a quarterback, it was my senior year in high school before I was switched to quarterback that year. So I played a little halfback, a little end before that time, but it goes back to 13, which is a few years ago, Jerry.
Having won the Heisman Award, how would you relate this award to having to that accomplishment?
Well, it's, you know, it's a tremendous thrill because I'm competing against the you know, best football players in the country in professional football, but I feel I have, you know, great need for improvement. There's a lot of things. I'm anxious to really establish myself as a quarterback, and I feel I haven't done that now. This is, as I say, hit me on behalf of a very fine football team. We just got into a tremendous winning streak, and there's so many people involved, and to have a quarterback singled out is difficult, and I'm not complacent with something like this, and I know that, you know, the circumstances have given me this award.
Was there ever a time in your career in the service, for example, that maybe the idea of giving up entered your mind?
Oh no, I, you know, spent the 4 years at the academy, and I knew I had a 4-year service obligation, and gee, I'd do it all over again, because I've had, you know, I've had that education. I've had the chance to mature a little bit in the service and learn a few things, and I had no thought of that at all. I fulfilled the obligation, and I stayed in shape, and I was anxious to play football again because I missed it a great deal.
Of course, it's by now a highly cliched question, but what advice do you have for youngsters? Yours seems to have paid off. Perhaps they'd like to know it.
Well, the you know, advice for youngsters, it's you know, difficult, but I believe the first thing that they should have in mind is, whether it's a young man is an athlete or not, that the education is extremely important, that they do everything they possibly can to get the finest education they can achieve, and then stand up on their own and think for themselves and be individuals, and with this education be a very constructive member of society. And of course, as an athlete, I feel very fortunate. I've learned many things from athletics, but I look back, and the education I have is the number one thing in my life right now as far as an individual.
And a question many people would like to ask you: how do you function in cold weather?
Well, I don't like to throw a sweaty football.